All right, Angie Wisdom, thank you for being on the show today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Brett. I'm happy to be here with you.
Excellent. I'm very excited for this one. It's been on the calendar for a while, and we can just kind of jump right in here. And one of the first topics I want to talk to you about, because I know it is one that's near and dear to your heart. I've heard you speak on it on stage via content. And I want to talk about the art of delaying gratification. And it's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and just people in general struggle with. So, how can we get a little bit better at delaying gratification in sight of our higher goals?
Yeah, that's a great one because we are a society that loves the instant gratification. And I equate it to being a very feelings based society. We typically do things, we say things, we take action on things because we feel a certain way. And
Right.
our feelings, they change all the time, but they do very much drive people's thoughts and decisions and actions. And that often is tied to that instant gratification. So I like to take an approach of going, if we don't want to use our feelings all the time, what do we really lean on? And that comes back to the values. You have to know what your core values are so that when you're making those choices, when you're choosing your thoughts, you're taking action, they're really aligned with your core values that are tied to that longer term goal, the longer term desires and wants in your life instead of that instant gratifications that's really feelings based.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And just curious, what are your core values?
Yes, my core values are a healthy lifestyle, time in nature, family, a religious way of life, accomplishment, time freedom, and alone time. So
Love
those
that.
have to show up in my life every single day, or I'll literally feel off. And people don't realize that if your values aren't showing up, it's usually the sign that you get when you're like, I just feel off. Something's kind of missing. I just feel like a little, discontent with life. That's a good indication that your values just aren't showing up in your life.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think it's a healthy practice to not only know your values and whatever they are, and they'll be kind of different from person to person, but remind yourself of what they are. Every
Hmm.
morning when you're reminding yourself of that long term vision, what you want to be doing 5 years from now, also remind yourself of what your values are. And I know for myself, and this is actually something I just recently started doing, I reread the book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People,
Oh,
which of course, anyone who hasn't read it should read it. It's one of the OG business personal development books, and it's timeless wisdom. And he just talks about the importance of knowing what your values are, and that's going to make it a lot easier to make decisions on a daily basis. So the three ones that I came up with were service, integrity, and fun. And those are just
mm,
the three values that, like, if I'm saying yes to something in my life and my calendar, it's got to have at least one of those things involved, and preferably two or three. So I really do. I think that's an important practice that I know I just recently did in the past month. And if anyone hasn't really kind of taken pen to paper on what their core 3 to 5 values are, I encourage you to do so, because I really do think it'll give you a lot of clarity moving forward on your mission.
it
So
does.
I did a deep dive on your contents before this interview, and
Yeah.
learned a lot about you. And there was one quote that you brought up that I love, and I want you to kind of talk about what it means to you a little bit. And so, the mind that created a problem is not the mind that can solve the problem. And I'm curious if you could just
Hmm.
talk about that quote and what it means to you a bit.
One of my favorite quotes, it was Einstein, they say, that quoted that. And it highlights the fact that if you've put yourself in a problem, if you've created a predicament, if you see things a certain way with this fixed mindset, then you aren't going to be able to solve that problem that your mind actually created. So I like to use it as an example. If we think about the fact that we don't have enough money, we don't have enough business, you've created this mindset and this problem that you have a lack of prospects, opportunities. It will be really hard for your mind then to look at it and solve that same problem because this is your belief system. This is the problem that your mind has created. And that's the power of coaching or anybody that you can talk to that really starts to ask you questions so that you can see things from a different perspective. Perspective is everything. And when we look at it through a different lens, then we can start to solve the problem that we have. So even being on a podcast, right? If someone were to ask you questions from their perspective, you're going to start to see things differently. And then all of a sudden you get into this space of solving that problem that before felt unsolvable because your mind actually created it.
100%. And I totally agree. I think that's been one of honestly the more fulfilling things about having a podcast here over the last couple of years is you do leave every conversation with a different perspective. And I try and go into every talk as like, what can I personally learn from this person that I can take forward with me? And I think if I kind of go at the interview from that framework, I think it also winds up bringing the audience a lot more value as well. And I want to talk a little bit about your history and you built a very successful investment firm and that's kind of where you made your name and of course have transferred that over into being a thought leader, a coach, a very coveted speaker. When you were building this investment firm, what would you say? How important was the skill of networking and your ability to build what you did over there?
I mean, it's huge. And before I even built my own investment firm, I
Yeah.
worked for Morgan Stanley as a financial advisor. And networking, and I like to call it more connecting, is everything. I mean, every business that we're involved in is about relationships and about connecting with people. Without that, you are making things extremely difficult in order, for you to build a successful business. But what's interesting about that is before I started my investment firm, I was not the same person. I hadn't done the work on myself and I didn't have the relationship with myself. So networking, connecting with people was much more difficult because I didn't have, say, this authenticity that I have now. I didn't know who I was. I cared a lot more about what other people thought. I didn't know what my values were. All these core components to really knowing yourself, doing that internal work, that's what sets you up to be a great connector, to network really well with people, which is ultimately the legs to any business out there. If you're not networking and connecting, then how are you building, how are you expanding relationships that are really going to take your company to that next level?
Yeah, but very true. And it's kind of like a buzzword at this point, right? Authenticity, but it really
Yeah.
is it's so important. So I don't think we can glance over it. If you're trying to network, you're trying to build a business, you're trying to build a personal brand, you're just going to connect with people on a much deeper basis if you are authentic. And to me, authenticity just means the things you say are the truth, right? Like you're speaking the truth about yourself. You're not trying to like pump up your story or your past or make yourself sound cooler or greater than you really are. You're grounded in reality and you're being vulnerable and you're being authentic and you're speaking the truth. And I think the more we can do that, the more we're going to connect with our audience and the more of an impact we'll eventually be able to make it. It's not an easy thing to do, be authentic, but I think it's a skill that we need to work on honing every single day. I've heard you talk a lot about this concept of the mindset of abundance
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the opposite, right? Which is not what we want. And how maybe if it doesn't come so naturally to us, maybe it was our upbringing, maybe our parents did not have a mindset of abundance. How can we develop this mindset that's oh so important to doing great things in this world?
The abundance mindset is crucial to if you want to create abundance in your life, because again, going back to the mind that solved the problem, created the problem, can't solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your lens, this mindset of scarcity, then you will act with scarcity and you will never attract the abundance. So the importance is huge. And we all have kind of our narrative, our story, our paradigm, call it what you want, that was kind of put into us in the first 7 years of our life. What we witnessed through our parents, what we witnessed through other people around us kind of shaped our minds. And what people don't understand is that you don't have to stay with that. You can 100% shift that. And you have to consciously put in the new story, the new narrative that you want to operate on. So if I have somebody who really operates from the scarcity mindset, it becomes this process of going, okay, well, what do you want to believe? What do you want to think? What's really going to serve you? And creating the thoughts around that so that every single day they can feed themselves that. It's a proactive approach to going, here's what I want my mind to believe. And we actually have the power to do that. Like our mind believes what we tell it. It's why sometimes the negative thoughts are so detrimental. We think that every thought is true, but if we proactively feed ourselves that thought of abundance, then we're going to start operating in that. And the reason it's so important is because we filter thoughts and actions in one way. We think something, so we feel something, so we do something. So if we think there is a lack of opportunity, money, love, whatever it is around scarcity, we're going to feel a certain way, fearful, anxious, depressed, whatever feeling that generates. Then that's going to guide our actions. So we may not pursue new business because we think there isn't enough. We feel insecure. We feel frustrated. So we don't do anything. So we have to really understand that our thoughts create the feeling, create the action. So if we want to act in abundance and generate that income, that love, whatever we want, it starts with the thought we think. So
Correct.
choose that thought of abundance.
Choose that thought, and I completely agree. The thoughts affect the feelings, which eventually result in actions.
Yeah.
I guess that some people listening might think, I have these thoughts all day long. My mind races. I just feel like I don't feel like I have control, right, of the thinker. How do we kind of wrangle and gain control of the thinker to kind of direct it in a more advantageous path?
Well, and you're right. I mean, we've never been in a time in our society where that's been more true, right? Because we have all the stimuli constantly from social media.
Yeah,
It's always coming in.
we're all consuming 400 milligrams of caffeine a day.
Right.
It's like if you're not on TikTok, you're on Instagram. It's an easy yes. It's a very easy time in history to let your mind get away with itself, or kind of run with an idea that maybe it shouldn't be running with. So how do we work with
It
that?
is.
How do we control the thinker a little bit better?
I'll give you a couple things.
Sure.
Again, it becomes about this proactive process of feeding yourself what you need. So, a couple of things. If we want to catch our thoughts and actually have control over them, then we have to see them. We have to be able to witness them. And we have this ability as humans, we can actually go, wow, here's what I'm thinking, instead of just accepting that thought and running with it. So that comes from self awareness. And I actually, gosh, I wish I remember where I saw it, but I just saw this quote the other day about how many people actually think they're self aware and how many people actually are. And it was something like 90 to 95% of people think that they are self aware, but reality is it's about 10%, 10% of people actually
Oof.
have this self awareness,
Oof.
right?
Tough.
So that is what you have to strengthen. You have to strengthen the act of self awareness so that you have this ability to go, okay, I'm thinking this. Do I want to accept this? Do I not want to accept it? You can do that in a couple of ways. One, meditation is huge for that, because when you meditate, you have thoughts that come and go, and that allows you to see the thought, let the thought go, choose a thought, all of that. So that's a great practice. The other thing is, I have a morning mindset journal. So in there, the first question of the day is, how do I feel and what do I want to do about it? So for anyone listening, you could literally ask yourself that question 3 times a day, and you're creating self-awareness. How do I feel right now? What do I want to do about it? That's self-awareness and empowerment. Now, every single time you do that, it's like doing a rep in the gym. It's like doing a crunch and strengthening your abs. So every single time you do that self-awareness of checking in, you've just strengthened that muscle. So you'll start to see on a daily basis, you have a little bit more control. You'll be like, oh, I'm thinking this. I actually caught this thought. What do I want to do with it?
I love that. That's a really powerful journal prompt, actually. I like that a lot. How do I feel and what do I want to do about it? And ask
Yeah.
yourself that maybe 2 or 3 times, throughout the day. And that, along with daily meditation, I completely agree, can kind of help add an extra layer to your consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not necessarily associating with those negative thoughts. And there's another layer there where you're watching those negative thoughts, and you can decide whether or not you want to run with them or whether or not you want to agree with them. And a lot of the times they're just lies. And you can
Yeah.
honestly even debate those negative thoughts and contradict them with proof, with real life proof
Mm-hmm.
that they're not true. So I think those are two great takeaways right there. The two powerful journal prompts, as well as daily meditation, will just help us become more self-aware and help us realize that maybe we're having a little more negative self-talk than we think we are, and that we can do something about it. We don't have to run with those thoughts. We don't have to agree with
Yeah.
them. So your book, very successful book, non-negotiable you.
Yes.
What does that term, non-negotiable you, mean to you?
It is the definition of the version of yourself that is the highest and best version of yourself, the one that truly has the ability to create meaningful success in a life that you love. And so there are a few different elements of that. But by becoming the non negotiable you, you understand your values. Self awareness is a key part of that. You're self aware, you understand your values. You also you take responsibility. You're not in a victim mentality. You understand how to lead yourself. You trust yourself. You guide yourself. So you really get into this space of going, it's about me, the executor. I don't care so much about what's going on around me. I know who I am. Authenticity is in there. I know what I want and I know how to create it. That's the non negotiable you.
I love
And
that.
we all have the power, but we often don't understand how to harness that power. Just like you said, with, the self-awareness and how do we, take control of those thoughts. We just have to learn how to do that. And everyone has the ability to be the non-negotiable you. But again, it takes daily practice to show up for yourself, to create this relationship with yourself that you trust, that will lead you to create everything that you want in your life.
It's a great moniker. It's really powerful. Non-negotiable you. The second I heard it, I was like, ooh, like that. You could feel that one. You really can,
Yeah.
and it's something that I think we should all absolutely aspire to. Now, you, of course, came from the investment world, but I want to kind of talk about the power of, of course, bonds, stocks, real estate are all things worth investing in. But I want to talk about the power and the art of investing in ourselves, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that it's Alex Hormozy calls it the S and me. You're right, 500, which I think
Yeah,
which I think is a great terminology. He's got a lot of them for sure, but
he does.
what do you think all of us should be doing to invest in ourselves, on a higher plane? Does that mean taking an online course once a quarter? Should we would be aiming to square off 30 minutes a day to read? Like, what are the nuts and bolts? Like, how do we actually do this whole investing in ourselves thing?
The very first way to invest in yourself is self mastery. And I talk on this all the time with companies that bring me in because we're a society fixated on learning skills. Like, let me take a class on marketing, let me take a class on sales, on scripts, on everything that is externally facing. But what we do is we skip the very first important step. And this is so relatable to Seven Habits of Highly Successful People. It's the inside work. It doesn't matter what you learn in sales, it doesn't matter what you learn about communication, marketing, productivity, time management. All of it's irrelevant if you, as the person, is not performing at their highest level, right? So you can learn the sales, but if you lack authenticity, if you lack confidence, if you lack discipline and responsibility in your life, that sales training is going to do nothing for you. So when I think about investing in yourself, every single person I talk to, I'm like, master yourself first. Understand who you are, show up for yourself daily, have a relationship with yourself, a relationship that you put above everything else because you're the creator, right? Whether you have a wife, kids, your relationship with God, anything like that, it comes from you. So you've got to master that relationship first. That's what I truly believe investing in yourself is. And people want to skip that all the time because it doesn't feel like the money generator, right? If I go learn this sales course, I'm going to be able to create sales and make more money. But the most important work is in yourself as who you are and what you want.
It's totally true. You can take every course out there, and every course out there can teach you every little micro step along the way to get everything you want. But if you haven't developed that self integrity, that self trust to make a promise and
Yeah.
then keep a promise to yourself every single day, then it doesn't matter what you learn because you're not going to have it inside of you to execute. So I guess the question then becomes, how do we build that self trust, that self integrity, that discipline so that when we learn these skills and we make promises to ourselves that we actually keep those promises?
Yeah, it's daily work, it's daily discipline, but the quickest, easiest answer, and I'll share a process with you, is creating a relationship with yourself. The relationship with yourself is the most important relationship, and at the same time, it's the most neglected relationship for everybody. You tend to everybody else first, and you always put yourself in the back of the line. You always cut your commitment before you would cut a commitment with someone else. So we've grown up in this society of going, I matter least. Everyone else is more important than me. All the commitments I make with other people are more important. I'll take kind of the leftovers. And that's exactly what gets us in the position that we're in, where you can't execute your sales training because you don't have this integrity and discipline and responsibility in your life. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's like you have to go back and create that relationship. If you have a great relationship with a spouse, right, you're showing up for them every day. You're checking in with them. You keep your promises. Like, you would never treat a loved one the way that we treat ourselves. So we go back and we build that relationship. And it's why when I wrote the book, I put in there the morning mindset practice. It's a practice I developed for myself and my clients for a way for them to create that relationship with themselves. So if they were like, gosh, well, how do I have that? You sit down with yourself every morning for 10 minutes and you go through these prompts of going, how do I feel? What do I want to do about it? What do I want to accomplish in this day? What are my intentions that are going to hit those goals and values? What am I grateful for? What am I asking for? What am I seeing in my life? That's creating a relationship with yourself. And at the end of the day, you're checking in and going, hey, did I get what I wanted? If not, what happened? What did I learn? Where did I find joy? Where did I win? That 10 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening is 15 minutes that will change your life because you're creating a relationship with yourself. And if you have a good relationship with yourself, are you going to stay committed? Are you going to have integrity? Are you going to follow through? Absolutely.
That is a really powerful way to start and end your day. I'll tell you what, when the Angie Wisdom journal hits Amazon, I'll be the first purchase to purchase, because those are some great prompts. They really are. And you talk about 15 minutes of your day that could totally change your life if you actually committed to answering those questions on
Yeah.
a daily basis. And just the act of setting intentions for your day. Think about how many people, I'd say a majority of people, don't do that. They just get up and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of let life, they let the breeze blow them in a direction. And at the end of the day, that, whatever happened, happened. Let's put Netflix on,
Yeah.
I think. But just getting up and actually having intentions, whether it's 5 or 10, I wouldn't advise too many more than that, because then you might get
Mm-mm.
overwhelmed. But have some
5.
intent.
Yep.
5, I think, yeah, for sure. Make 5 promises to yourself a day. And then I think it was actually Jen Gottlieb. I think you may have shared a post about this. And she talks about every time you make a promise to yourself and you keep that promise, you're entering a coin into the confidence piggy bank. And
Yep.
I think that's 100% true. But you can't keep a promise to yourself if you're never making promises. So just having
Mm-hmm.
that daily act of, whether it's writing down in a journal or maybe it's a to-do list app on your phone, whatever it is, have some daily intentions, have some targets that you're trying to hit. And you may not hit them every day because you're a human being and things come up and the resistance takes over sometimes. But that's what the daily review is for. Check into that daily review.
Right.
Did I do what I said I was going to do? And if I didn't, that's okay. I'm a human being. I'll be compassionate with myself. But let's figure out why. Why didn't I hit those goals? And let's try and be a little bit better tomorrow. That's such a powerful process that I think could just really help a lot of people feel more meaning in their lives.
Yeah. That's investing in yourself. When you look at what you've done every day and learn from it, that's investing in yourself. How powerful is that? I mean, there are so many people who run into the same wall again and again and again. They have for years run into this same challenge that they can't get over because they've never thought about, like, okay, well, why is this showing up? What got in the way? So I always tell people, if you don't hit your intentions, don't judge it. That's actually a gift. If I don't hit my intentions for the day, I'm like, awesome. What am I going to learn today?
Mm-hmm.
There's something in here that I'm going to learn, whether I over allocated on time, whether I was lost on a project, whatever it was, I'm going to learn something. And I take that into the next day. And I'm always a little bit better the next day because I learned something.
I
That's
love
huge.
that.
And the journal is out, Brett. So I will
Oh,
have
never
Gabby
mind.
send that to you.
Then go get
Yes.
it.
And I
Then
will
go
have
get it.
Gabby send one over to you.
Oh,
Yes. So
let's
yours is
go.
in the mail.
All right. Well, we will link that in the show notes. I had a feeling if that might have existed, but right, it was like one of those things where right after I said it, I was like, actually, it probably already exists.
It's
But
there. Yeah.
it's there. It's out there in the universe. Go get it, guys, because those are some powerful prompts. And I guess so. So here's another question. let's say, I'm setting the daily intentions, right? And I'm doing the daily review, but I keep coming up short. I keep kind of running into that resistance, right? As Stephen Pressfield talks about in the art of war, or the war of art, excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. And I just keep running. I seemingly run out of motivation in the middle of the day, and I'm just sitting on like the floor looking up at my ceiling, and I'm like, why aren't I doing the things that I want to be doing, or the things I know I should be doing? What do you say to that person that consistently lacks the motivation seemingly to do the things that they know they want to do?
There's no doubt that you will uncover what's kind of showing up for you in this process, because if you're like, missed it again, what got in the way, and you're like, didn't feel motivated,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says, what did I learn? Right? And you will find something. Like, I've written down like 8 clients is too many in one day. I lose my steam, right? Like, so I learned something about why I feel a certain way. The other thing is, remember, our values are in here. So it's saying, like, did your values show up? And if your values aren't showing up, you're generally running low on motivation, because that's what gives us the reason to get up and go, right? Imagine, and there's a lot of people out there like this who are just kind of doing that hamster wheel life. It's like you get what the day gives you, but the things that are most important to you, the things that you love, are not showing up in your life. Your body, your mind will actually become demotivated. And that's a red flag to say, hey, what is all this for? Like, why am I even doing this or trying things if I don't get anything that really brings me joy and, love in my life? And when you have that, and then you know what your values are, you'll start to see that change. If you're like, okay, well, I didn't get my values in. I need that alone time. I need that physical activity, the relationship time, all of that clarity, and then your action to navigate through it, you will work your way through it. This is a way to self coach.
I love that. I think it's totally true. If you really are kind of, looking back and analyzing your days with a fine tooth comb, you'll see why you had those A+ days. Like, oh, okay, I got
Mm-hmm.
up and I worked out and I meditated that day, and then the dominoes just kind of fell on their own, seemingly. Whereas maybe on Thursday I slept in, didn't have time at all for my morning routine, and then the entire day was a struggle, and just even putting pencil to paper seemed like pushing a boulder up the hill. And I think that right, the more that you review your days, you'll see commonalities between those days that were A+ days. And on the same token, you'll see commonalities between those days that weren't so effective. And you'll be able to more strategically put a plan in place to make more A+ days happen. You talk a lot about, and I love this term, choosing your seat.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what that means.
What do you want in your life? It's a seat, and you got to choose it. Again, going back to people who kind of take whatever comes their way, that's not choosing your seat. Choosing your seat is really going, this is the life that I want, or this is the business that I want. It's about really thinking, what do you want in your life, and how do you get there? Choosing your seat is going, I want my day to look like this. I want my life to look like this. I want my financials to look like this. Really visualizing it, and then going, okay, then what action do I need to take? It's as simple as that. But most people don't do that. We just run on the wheel. And if the job opportunity comes up, you take it. If the next, promotion comes up, you apply for it. But really, we have so much capability and power, but we have to really ask ourselves, what do we want? What do we want life to look like? What do we want day to look like? Relationships to look like? All of it.
It's a
And
scary
that's scary
question.
for some people. Yes, see? Because there's this fear that's like, well, I don't even want to dream that. I don't even want to think about it, because what if I can't have it?
Right.
But the question you should be asking is, are you willing to do the work to get what you want? Because it's all achievable. You know that. I mean, look, we're on the persistence playbook here, right? So it's all achievable if you're willing to do the work required. And the work has been done before. So we know that it can be done again.
Very true. Pretty much anything that we're looking to do in this life has, in some way, shape, or form, been done, right? And that
Yep.
person's probably written a book, or they've done a few interviews, or they've made a course. And we just need to learn from those people that have done the things that we want to do in our lives, and then just kind of cut and paste and put our own spin on it. And I'm curious that we've talked a lot about, the power of investing in yourself, building a relationship, with yourself. Do you have like a set morning routine yourself that you abide by on a daily basis? And if you do, I think the audience would love to hear about it.
Absolutely, I do. I'm very structured in that. It's what makes me thrive during the day. First thing, coffee, meditation, and then I get into my morning mindset journal, which is the journal we were talking about. I spend some time in there setting the intentions, gratitude, all of that, frame up my day, and then it's gym, and then it's walk the dogs, and then it's work.
There
So
it
it is
is.
like clockwork every single day, but there's a method, and to that madness. It's like meditating first thing in the morning allows you to really kind of open your mind to the thoughts that might be coming and going, to give you this space to see what's coming into your day. And then when you open up that journal and you start to really write out, okay, here's how I'm feeling and here's what I want to show up in my life, you're getting in the driver's seat. You're basically saying, like, I'm not accepting just what's coming to me. I'm going to create the way I want to think. I'm going to create what I want to happen in my day. And does it mean that it all goes that way? Absolutely not. Like you said, things come up, things happen, but at least you got in the driver's seat and you took responsibility for what you wanted in your life. And then you fuel your body, fueled your mind, fueled your body, go take action.
I love that. That is a really just kind of powerful morning sequence right there. And curious, is it meditation before coffee or is it coffee before meditation? Because I think if I tried to
It
meditate before coffee, I'd probably just fall back asleep.
Yeah, no, I make the coffee. I only get a couple sips in, and then I take my journal and I cover the top of it so
Okay,
it
nice.
stays somewhat hot.
Nice, 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 nice. All right, we're
And
really
then
getting into
meditate.
the nuts and bolts
The
of it here.
specifics.
I really want to be as granular as possible here for the audience, because I know if I got up and tried to go straight to the meditation chair without even smelling caffeine, it would
No,
become the sleep for another hour chair. So okay, fair enough.
it's true.
I think that's a way to go. And then listen, you get out, you walk the dog, you get some sunlight in the eyes, which of course everyone talks about how
Yes.
important that is these days to reset that circadian rhythm. That's something I've recently implemented in my morning routine, is just getting, 10, 15 minutes of sunlight towards my eyes sometime in the morning. And I really do just feel a rush of energy. I feel like I'm more focused. I'm more energized in the morning. And I also feel like I sleep better at night if I make a priority of getting some
Yeah.
sunlight in my eyes in the morning. Of course, Andrew Huberman is kind of the guy I think that really brought that to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like a full episode on it if you really want to go deep into the why of why you should be doing that. But all I can say is give it a shot. I think you'll see a difference in your day. So I want to kind of delve into um, your day specifically, and you're obviously a person who gets a lot done on a daily basis. You built multiple very successful businesses. How do you arrange your daily tasks? Are you more of like a time blocker where you time block every second out, or are you more of just kind of like, here are the 5 things I want to get done and I'm going to get them done any way which I can?
Time blocker all the
Time
way.
blocker.
Have
Okay.
to, yeah, because again, it goes back to those feelings, right?
Mhm.
And if I don't have structure in my calendar and know where I'm dedicating that time, I don't really know what I'm kind of pouring into the bucket of what goal, of what value. And it can very much turn into that feelings based mentality. But if I know what I'm trying to achieve in the next 6 months or the next year, I know what my values are, and I schedule that in, I'm creating my life. I'm creating the life that is in alignment with the things that are most important to me and the direction I want to go and the things I want to achieve. I don't, there are people out there who don't believe in time blocking, but to me, I just feel like there's a lot of wasted time if I'm not very diligent about what I want to spend with. And the other thing is, I'm with clients a lot.
Sure.
I'm one on one or group coaching. So a lot of my day is structured with those time blocks. So I have to be really diligent about, like,
Mhm.
when I'm not, what's important to get done.
Sure.
And there's, again, two businesses. I'm working on my second book. I'm starting a new business actually too. So you have to be really structured with your time if you want it all in there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, time blocking is, for the most part, what comes up when I ask that question of really high performers. And, they know exactly what they want to get done from 2 to 3 p.m. If they're in between meetings, maybe it's write a few pieces of content, maybe it's work on that business
Mm-hmm.
plan, maybe it's edit that pitch before it goes out the door. But I think if you've got a really laser focused idea of what you want to get done, when you want to do it, you're just more likely to get it done, as opposed to just kind of having these to-dos kind of like, floating above your head all day long. And you're like, I don't know when I'm going to do them. I hope I'm going to do them. And then you wind up probably not getting them done because you didn't actually make the time for them. And I heard you say there, 6 month goals, year-long goals. And I'm always curious for people like yourself that are really getting things done at a very high level. Do you believe in like 5 year goals? I've heard people say they don't even like 5 year goals. They're like, I just have year goals. I'm going to bang them out and then I'll kind of reevaluate after this year. Do you have a long-term vision attached to your yearly goals, or do you try and keep things a little bit, closer to the 6 month, 12-month ranges as to how you structure your goal setting?
I have visions, like 5 year, 10-year visions,
Mm-hmm.
right? That are very broad. They're not specific. Like it may be to have a certain investment portfolio, roundabout figure wise, but a certain time so that that creates a certain amount of income, right? So I don't have it laid out of every little step that's going to take me to get there 5 years from now, but I know what I want. I see the vision of it, of the real estate that we own, of the speaking that I want to do, of the people that are going to be in my groups. So I have a vision, but it's not super granular and detailed because I don't believe that we execute that far in advance of that vision. But
Right.
I have to have the vision because I know that what I do today has to align with getting me there 5 years from now.
Sure.
There's too much time in between to optimize and to get granular on it. So 100% you have to have the vision, your North Star, whatever you kind of want to refer to it as, so that you're constantly like, yes, this is what the direction I'm moving in. And what I'm doing today are laying the stepping stones to that.
It makes sense. And I think that's totally true. I think, a long term vision, something 5 years, whatever it is, 7 years down the road, just kind of knowing, generally, and, of course, being flexible and knowing that it may change as well. But I think just kind of having that North Star, here's what I want my life to look like from a fitness perspective 5 years
Mm-hmm.
from now. Maybe it's 10% body fat and overflowing energy daily. Here's what I want my life to look like from a financial perspective. Here's what I want my life to look like relationally, and here's what I want my impact to look like 5 years from now. And just kind of reading it to yourself, glancing at it every single day can kind of really act as your why, right? And I think that if we're
Yeah.
not if we're not reminding ourselves of the grand vision, where we really want to be 5 years from now, it is kind of tough to keep motivation going, because you're like, why am I even doing all this stuff? Like
Right.
I'd rather just jump in the pool and swim a couple laps and take a nap, or go play 9 holes of golf on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, why am I sitting down and filming like 10 videos to post on Instagram? Like, I don't really feel like doing this. And I think that just the daily practice of taking a glance, and it can be a quick glance, it can be a 30-second, 60-second glance, just kind of remind yourself, okay, here's where I'm going. Here's why I'm going to do all the hard things I promised myself I'm going to do today. I think that is just a really powerful practice that we can all kind of, use and leverage to get more things done. I've heard you
It
talk
is.
about, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say one more thing on top of that is
Yeah.
that it activates that reticular activating system in
Mm-hmm.
our brain. So if we think about that every day, if I'm like 5 years from now, I'm going to, be sharing my time and living half the year in Hawaii. And that's a goal of mine. And every day I see that as a vision. Things are going to come into my space that are going to help me do that. I'm actually employing, my brain to really start to look for those opportunities to start to line the ducks up in a row. And Bob Proctor in Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life, he does a great job talking about, he calls it almost like a seagull.
Mm-hmm.
The seagulls are the ones that you don't even know how it's going to happen, but it's something that you want. It's something that you're committed to, but you're just going to have to kind of keep taking action, shorter term action, and trust that you'll get there when you keep this vision. So there's a lot of mindset that comes into that, of just getting your own mind on board with creating that subconsciously.
Yeah, yeah, well, 100%. And I've also kind of heard you talk about something which I also think is incredibly important, and it's the importance of spending time with yourself daily,
Hmm.
right? Spending time with your thoughts, spending time with yourself, and I'm just curious, what that practice looks like for you.
Again, that goes back to that morning mindset and having the control over your thoughts, being in the driver's seat of your life. Again, take a relationship that you have with a loved one. If you didn't spend time with them, you wouldn't have a relationship, right? There would have no trust. You wouldn't have that integrity that we talked about. So spending time with yourself sends so many messages. It says, hey, you're important. I care about what you're thinking. I care about what you're creating. I'm prioritizing you. It creates confidence in yourself. It creates that advocacy and that leadership for yourself. So there's so many important elements of it, and it's really just about sitting down with yourself and asking those questions in the journal. How do I feel? What do I want to do about it? What am I grateful for? What are my affirmations? Anything like that to really connect with yourself the same way you would do with another loved one.
Yeah, for sure. The same way, right? Exactly. Like you sit down with someone you really care about, and you're going to ask them great questions. And I think that's the same way you've just kind of turned that spotlight on yourself. And whether that is while you're working out or while it's on your 10-minute commute to work, have a few prompts, a few questions that you ask yourself on a daily basis, and that can really just make all the difference in, like you said, developing that relationship with yourself, which is just so important for not only achieving great things, but just enjoying
Yeah.
enjoying this journey that is life. The relationship we have with ourselves, to me, is probably the most important thing that we can develop. And one more question before we wrap up here,
Yeah.
because you have really built a very successful speaking career. I mean, you've been on stage with with the biggest of the big, and you're a very sought after speaker at this point. And I find I talk to a lot of people, entrepreneurs or otherwise, that are aspiring speakers, but they're just not speaking. And I'm just curious, what
Mm.
would your advice be to an aspiring speaker? What are the first few steps that they should take?
The first step is really understanding what you have to share with people. You can love to speak, but what is your message?
Mhm.
How is it impacting people? You have to master that. And once you do, it comes out very passionately. You have to start sharing it with people. So it may be coming on podcasts, right? So people get a glimpse of what you're knowledgeable about and how passionate you are about it. I also would recommend find free speaking opportunities right now. There are always groups and organizations that are looking for somebody to come in and speak as a volunteer, as a freebie. And that's a great way to get started. You'll have other opportunities if you set yourself up to deliver that well with the people in the audience. So don't shy away from the free speaking pieces. And then the last one goes back to one of the first things you asked me about. It's networking connections. You've got to know people. You've got to be willing to ask, hey, I know you work over with, you know, so and so pharmaceutical company. Do you guys ever do events? Do you ever look for speakers to come in and motivate your people to create change in their life? Yes, actually, we do. I'll connect you with this person. So you got to ask. You have to
That's
know the people and ask.
that is great advice. It really is. Know your message. Put in the reps with free speaking opportunities.
Hmm.
Don't wait for that best man speech to roll around every 3 years, because that's probably not going to
Yeah.
get you on. That's not going to be enough practice to get you on the stages that you want to be on. And then network with other people. Ask the questions. Do you have anyone that you think could benefit from my message? And I know a lot of people today listening benefited from your message, Angie. And I
Mhm.
appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation, Brett.
Absolutely. Where can people find you? Keep up with all you got going on these days.
The name is not super common. So, Angie Wisdom, you'll find me out there. Angie Wisdom Life Coach on Instagram, same on YouTube. The website is angiewisdom.com. My book's on there, the journal's on there. I put out so much free content. So, any of the platforms out there, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you'll find me there.
There it is, guys. And go get that journal, because it does exist. Pardon me. And Angie, thank you for being here, guys. This has been Persistence Playbook, and we will catch you next week.